Good morning. Let me make sure my setup is the way I want it. I think we're doing okay. Pardon me. I just had to wish my Japanese visitor a good trip. He'll be leaving in a few minutes during the show. He's got a train to catch to Ottawa. He'll be leaving in a few days. So, pardon the slight delay that added a couple of minutes to my morning. But let's see what's going on out there. B for victory. Bomatan. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Indeed. Where do I sats? Bomatan à tous. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Have a great day. We love it. Salut. We got a lot of French in the house today. All right. Where do I sats? We love it. I'm back in Montreal, so I'm speaking a bit of French. Good morning, BTC fam. Hello, Ben. What is up? Buenos dias. Bitcoiners. Jose. We love it. Where do I sats? Buenos dias, Jose. Okay, great. We got English, we got Spanish. Hope you're all having an excellent morning. I'm waiting for Bitcoin Graffiti to come in here with a Ohio. All right. Yo, es-tu au meetup mardi à Quebec? Were you in Quebec City for the meetup? I just found out they're building that new tram in Quebec finally. I used to live in Quebec City. I would love for that tram. That would be just the best. I just heard about it. I guess people are fighting about it in Canada. That's how I heard about it. Right? I heard about the fighting. Where do you guys hear about the change in accounting rules for BTC in the US? Very bullish news. Did you guys hear? No, I did not hear about that, Jose. Unfortunately, let me know in the comments, and I'll probably know what, some context. Good morning, CK in the house. What's up, CK? I hope you're doing great, man. Hiya, Breakup gang. Nice to join you live again, Louis. We love it. We love it. We love it. Tom. What's up, my man? Good morning. Yeah, turds. We're talking about turds today. There's Bitcoin Graffiti. There he is. There's the man with the coffee. There he is with the coffee. Je m'en vais chez Jean Coutu. He's clearly been to Quebec. There you go. All right. Oh, there it is. The FASB changed the way you treat Bitcoin as a corporation in your books to fair value accounting. Oh, great. That's the Michael Saylor thing, right? That's the thing he was suing for. Yeah, excellent. Saylor posted about it. Great. I didn't notice today, but that's good news for me too, because in all the fake companies that I create, they're not fake, but they're very Biden inspired, right? They're very Biden-esque. Because, I've mentioned before, it was like my strategy with COVID, right? Fake tests, fake everything, counterfeit everything, One of the neat things you can do with this whole birth certificate system that's used to borrow money in our head is just create multiple fake people. You can create all the straw men you want anywhere in the world. Anyone on earth can create a US LLC. The reason is America can open collateralized debt on every social security number. So if you create an LLC, which is a straw man or a tin man, it's called you get an ITIN number, right? Instead of a social security number, you get an exact same thing called an ITIN number. So you can consider it either a straw man or a tin man, and anyone can create them, right? Just create them. I got so many, right? You just put a bit of here, then move it there, and then, in the end, one of my tax strategies is to make things so legal but complicated that the amount of effort to go through everything will be a lot. We'll see if 87,000 IRS agents can do it, but I don't care. I think we're going to beat them. I think we're just going to outlast them. Confusopoly. Fight the Confusopoly with the Confusopoly. But before we talk too much about Confusopolies, let's just acknowledge we got a major sunrise on our hands. Another hot day here in Montreal. We finally got summer. And Bitcoin's running with new accounting rules. So all that's left for us to do is have a coffee and talk about what's new. This one's great. I got some Moscow time. This one's great. So, we got some heat happening here in Montreal. It's not going to kill anyone. It's only 80 something degrees, right? It's like 30 maybe Celsius. But as you know, it's been really warm in the desert, which is pretty typical, I'd say, for September and October. If you go around Las Vegas, you might just be hot, right? Well, it turned out someone the other day, unfortunately, had a bit of trouble. He was mentally ill, and he went for a walk in the Nevada desert, and it was 109 degrees. And unfortunately, he died. All right, so that's not funny. That's sad. No one wants to see anyone in that trouble. The only problem is Washington Post decided it wasn't really that he was mentally ill or that the desert was 109 degrees. No. Heat's hidden risk. So if you read the article, they actually blame the death of the mentally ill man on, guess what? What do you think it was? It was the emissions from the cow farts in your car. That's what killed the mentally ill man in the desert. Come on. That's what they said. That's heat's hidden risk, guys. All right. So that's the Washington Post. So there you go. But we got more. If you were wondering about the cost of living and a lot of people struggling, right? Some people want to have empathy and they want to sort of know what's going on with that, right? They want to know what it's like to live in this environment, to live in this economy in America, and try to persevere. Well, the good news is if you come from one of the wealthiest districts outside of Chicago, in their Highland Park Country Club this weekend, they're going to be running a poverty simulation event, right? So one of the richest places in America is going to be running a poverty simulation event, right? And they're going to be doing a lot of cool things with it, right? They're going to be talking about the poor experience, right? And they're going to be going without a few things, and hopefully they make it. But this is actually happening, a poverty simulation, right? So in case you're interested, right, have a little poverty simulation. Now, some people out there have been saying that it was that the United States immigration system under Trump was really racist, right? I used to say all Trump wanted to do was put the Canadian immigration system into place, right? That's what I used to say. I used to say all Trump is really asking for here is like some kind of metric, right, to allow people into America. And in Canada, if you didn't know, it's a point system, and they can just toggle the points up or down, and that would change the thresholds. You get points for speaking English, you get points for speaking French, you get points for going to college in Canada, you get points for having a job, you get points for all this kind of stuff. And so the government will just change the threshold of points to be considered for immigration depending on what they want that year. So that's one approach. And that was called super duper uber racist, right? Back in the day. Not the Canadian one, just because Trump said it, right? But now the UN has something else to say. This is in CBC News today. UN envoy links the temporary foreign worker program to contemporary forms of slavery. Thousands of workers come to Canada each year to work in the agricultural sector through the temporary foreign worker program. But a UN official denounced Canada's temporary foreign worker program as a breeding ground for contemporary forms of slavery. That's probably true. I believe that's true. Now, here's another one from CNN, right? And this is actually happening. This was on the radio. As it happens, if anyone's planning on going to New York City at all in the next little while, well, I got an idea for you. Some people call it the greatest city in the world, and there's so much to see. Well, there's a new thing to see. Here it is, right? Here's the headline. I can't believe this is actually a thing. Man says offering rat tours in New York City, right? Host of the popular Rat Talk live stream brings tourists along to see the critters, and he's not alone, right? But remember, I was mentioning yesterday, they're going to have to try and deal with the rat farts, because I don't know why rat farts are exempt from emissions. Like, how are they different than the cow farts? I don't know. You tell me. I don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. Speaking of New York City, oh no, I got one more of these. This is good. Okay, let me add these two to Moscow time, and then I'll jump back into New York City. This one's really great. One of the things we have to just sort of stop in on regularly is MSNBC, because it's not even that they put spin on it, right? They just go straight. They just throw the ball straight. It's just a straight throw sometimes, right? What I mean by straight throw is just a lie. Like, it's a straight up lie, right? So this one's great. This is in the context of impeaching Biden. This is what they say. Matt Gaetz doesn't just want Kevin McCarthy to launch an evidence-free impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden, as Steve Bannon writes. We know who Steve Bannon is, right? Gaetz's appeal is also came with an unsettled threat, right? No evidence. But this one's great. Right? Is MSNBC doing a favor to their readers with this, or is this a form of their own psychic breakdown? So this is an MSNBC headline. How to not have a psychic meltdown when you see new Trump-Biden poll numbers. As infuriating as it is to admit the electorate may choose another Trump term, the only answer may be to hold on to that truth. I don't know. I didn't read the rest of it. It was just a good headline, right? Really good headline. And here it is, right? Roughly 2/3 of Republican voters have apparently convinced themselves that even if Trump is guilty in his criminal cases, it's not relevant to the fitness of his presidency. As Steve Bannon asks, what happened to the party of law and order? What happened? What happened? This is back to New York now, right? They got the rat tours going on, but the mayor, Eric Adams, who I don't hate Eric Adams. He's going to ban meat in New York, right? But you got to admit, he looks fit. So you got to give him credit for that, right? And I think that is important. And, so he's a fit guy. But yesterday he came out, and remember, everyone's been reminding him, he bragged about America being a sanctuary, about New York City being a sanctuary city. He said, we're a sanctuary city. Send us everyone. Remember the Statue of Liberty, right? Send us your weak. Send us your piles of poo, right? We need all of that. And that poem below the Statue of Liberty, which has nothing to do with the Statue of Liberty, by the way, right? The poem was added later. The statue was before, and sort of mixed interpretation of what the statue is, according to some. But he came out and said it is a sanctuary city. And by sanctuary city, what sanctuary cities mean is that they police if they pick you up, right? If anyone ever tries to get you on sanctuary city or gets in a conversation with you with sanctuary city, ask them to define what a sanctuary city is. Just ask them, right? Do you know what a sanctuary city is? And they'll go, oh, we love people and all that, right? But just say, what is, try and get them to focus in on what it actually is. In the end, they won't know, obviously, right? Because that's been hidden from them. But I'll let you know, because it's really simple. A sanctuary city is just one where the police don't turn criminals in to the immigration authorities to deport them, right? It boils down to that. And unbelievably, there's some other things which I'm totally for. The things that I'm totally for with sanctuary cities that I believe should be instituted across America, for example, are if you want to send your kids to school, they don't ask the immigration status of the parents. Like, I'm kind of okay with that. Now, I think schools are child abuse anyway, so it's not really that thoughtful. But look, if it gets the parents a bit of free time and they have to work, who else would be doing this? Are there like deadbeat welfare cases that are just coming into America to throw their kids into the system while they go and be lazy? I don't think that's really true, right? I think 99% of the people coming over the river really just want a job, right, over the Rio Grande. That's how I see it. I could be wrong, right? Now, I still think you got to deal with the 1% of absolute terrible people who are coming in, maybe less than 1%, that don't want anything to do with making America and life in America a better thing, right? So there is a portion of that I would never want to ignore. And we'll be talking about that river in a moment, because it came up today, the Rio Grande, where they're crossing. So the mayor of New York yesterday gave a talk to, I'm not sure who it was, but he said when he was referring to that audience that he was behind, you only got a portion of them as he was giving a speech. It looked like they were all around him, or that he was in the middle of some situation. There were flags. It looked like some kind of official mayor thing, because the flag of New York was there. And he came out and said to these people, like, you guys are the most educated, you're the smartest people in New York, you want to see New York better, but let me tell you the truth, right? He says, with this new migrant thing, we're getting 10,000 migrants. I forget the time, a week. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's a lot. And he came out and said that New York City is done. It won't make it if this continues. He says it might already be there, and he says it's going into all the neighborhoods. And he made this story about, some people say put them in Manhattan, the Manhattan people say put them in Queens, the Queens people say put them in Brooklyn, the Staten Island say everyone get out of here. Staten Island had a bit of a thing pop off last week, by the way. Staten Island, one of the boroughs. I don't think he mentioned the Bronx. I think he just forgot about the Bronx, because no one's actually going there, right? So Mayor Adams comes out and says that. He concedes that it's the illegal immigration and that part of it, right? And everyone jumping in saying, we should, bringing up his old tweets on when he was running for mayor about how he would always be a sanctuary city and always support New York as a sanctuary city. And now he's got to deal with the cost of that bill, right? The cost of that bill is, and it looks like the other states, people continue to try and blame Texas and the other states for shipping them there, but it's the same resource problem. I think that's really what Texas was saying forever. Each one who comes across the border costs money. So we can't deal with the whole cost. So someone else has to bear it. And that's where this whole bus thing came to be. Now, some people asked why Trump never did it. That came up in the Cernovich sort of thread on this talk in the past couple of days. And Trump did threaten it, but he never did it, right? So that's an important distinction. It is a great idea, and seems to be forcing everyone to understand that there's mathematics involved here, and it's not sentiment and it's not feelings. And it's that story, right? That there are cost benefits, that there are positives and negatives to almost every political issue that comes across folks, instead of this grafted on moral argument that is really just brainwashing, that is really just designed to push folks into that is really just designed to push folks into one of these binaries, into one of these fake prisons of two ideas, where you end up just fighting over the political tension and wedge with the issue, not really how to solve the problem, not how to address the problem, right? Right now, this is all just turned into the typical US binary, political binary. So that's what we've got going on with this situation. But it does make me think that all of the pieces that we have, and that's our theme for today, the trusted turd parties, basically every instance in American life where you would have to have a trusted third party, a trusted intermediary, anything out there that we would otherwise use in order to make the system work is absolutely broken. Like everything, right? So you can go down the list now, right? The list is pretty simple, right? You can start with considering this entire case of sanctuary cities and municipal governments, and in this case, federalism itself, right? Federalism itself. So if you think about it in terms of federalism itself and how these things fit in, just look at what's happening in Texas, right? So I mentioned the migrants coming in Texas. Well, this is breaking news from CNN this morning, right? A federal judge has ordered Texas to remove floating barriers. So they had put these barriers up in the Rio Grande, which made it difficult to swim across, all right? So it was aimed to deter migrants. Now, I don't know what these barriers are made of. But I don't think they're made of like electroshock material. It's kind of just like, maybe you swim under, maybe you climb over. I don't know anything about them. I don't know how hard it would be to overcome these things. The river current is there. I don't know any of it, right? So CNN goes further. They say a federal judge has ordered Texas to remove floating barriers in the Rio Grande and barred the state from building new or placing additional buoys in the river, according to a court filing, marking a victory, they call it, for the Biden administration, right? Now, we got to consider this, right? Is Texas going to follow the federal government here? I hope not. Look, I don't want anyone drowning in the Rio Grande. Don't want any of that. I don't know the actual implications of the river border thing, the buoys. Like I said, I don't want a dangerous situation, but that's not the part that interests me. The part that interests me is the tension between the state of Texas and the federal government. Now, if Texas does ignore this, right, and we don't, we're in a context where Biden has shown he's uninterested in protecting the border. So Texas has this sort of trade-off to deal with, right? Do they listen to the federal judge? Do they ask the federal government to protect them, or do they do it themselves, right? Very interesting conundrum. One that I think could have massive implications for New York and the entire practice of U.S. federalism. Now imagine if they ignore it, put up more barriers. We've got a Joe Biden situation where they're not protecting the border. Would the federal government send, for example, the National Guard in to dismantle the Texan installation of these buoys, right? Now, it would be pretty good, pretty interesting, right? I think you would have a major amount of cognitive dissonance if that happened. If you had Texas more or less invaded by the federal armies, we'd have quite a situation on our hands. And we'll see if the feds are willing to send an army to the border to keep it open. Right? They might do that. They might send some type of force down to Texas to keep the border open. And I think that would sort of open up the conversation way more than we've got right now. So we've got New York City saying it's failing, Texas in a real conflict now with the federal government, one that we haven't really seen at this scale in many, many years in America, right? This does involve security. It does involve sovereignty, really. The sovereignty of Texas is that question here. And one can imagine that the New York story is going to relate to it, right? This New York piece where Texas is shipping all of these folks over to New York absolutely changes the calculus of all of this, right? Because you've got a major city where the mayor himself is saying we might not survive. New York, that you know, that everyone knows, is gone. Now, I think it's already gone. I mean, I don't live in New York for a reason. There's a reason I don't live in New York. And I'll even say this weekend I was with as I was mentioning, I have a friend that I met years ago in South Korea. We took a bunch of trips to Japan, and he became a big fan of Montreal and started visiting me here a lot. I went down to his place in Brooklyn before. He's been living in the city forever. He became a doctor later. When we both left Korea, I went to law school. He went to med school. So we just sort of stayed friends. And he was up this weekend for Labor Day weekend where I live. And even he, who is as, New York through and through as you'll ever find, is done, right? He was like, I don't really want to go back. That's how I left. I basically went out of the city in the summer of 2020 and said, whoa, like how much of my cognitive load is actually going towards navigating and living in New York City? I said, it's too much. I mean, I need all that space. I need basically all of that mental capacity back. I can't use it to navigate a shithole city anymore because things had gotten so bad after COVID, immediately after COVID, that it's just not worth it anymore. And I don't think it's gotten any better. I don't think it's become any easier to navigate your way through New York City. I hear there's something like, with rent going crazy, there's still thousands of unoccupied apartments because people just don't like the market there, waiting, holding, who knows, trying to force prices up or keep prices up. But that's just another example, right? We've got this situation where the actual balance between the states and the federal government is now starting to wobble. And as it wobbles, and as we look at all of these trusted institutions that we had, and it really is the institution of federalism, right? Is it still capable of producing results that make people safe and prosperous and all that? Doesn't look like it, right? And not only does it not look like it from the actual federal institutions, the other pieces that would allow and supplement this to work are the ones that are broken. So in this case, we're talking about the media, right? We're talking about the media and its ability to even navigate these cases. It doesn't take, anyone who's watched the show for a while realizes that there is no real objective media in the United States anymore. It is mostly Operation Mockingbird. There was a time when I thought, I've never denied or doubted that there was something like Operation Mockingbird. I never really realized the scale to which it was at. But this Phil Bump thing, the Washington Post and COVID, everything since Trump really, right, has shown us that Mockingbird is not like a minority of media. It's the whole thing. That's all it is, right? And we can see it in many cases. One of them here shows just how insidious this thing is, and that involves Morgan Stanley, one of the largest banks in America, right? Have any of you seen this story? This is Morgan Stanley and the media. So it turns out, not only Morgan Stanley and the media, I got to add one more. I got to add our favorites at the SEC and FinTrack and FinCEN. In the United States, it's FinCEN. Canada, it's FinTrack. The number one enemy of Bitcoin, the thing that got me into Bitcoin, was FATF and FinCEN and FinTrack, because I had a very large interest in money laundering before I got into Bitcoin. And because I was studying it to find out what the hell was going on and why we couldn't catch anyone and what it was all about. and what a wasted bureaucracy that existed to help find money laundering in America, because they were prosecuting nobody. The prosecutions to this day for FinCEN and FinTrack are next to nothing, right? You can go look it up. They've started giving out rewards for people who do this kind of stuff. Like in the United States, if you do tattletale on someone, you get a percentage of what they get. So they kind of count all of this stuff into their findings, but it's not exactly the way they present it, obviously, right? So they catch very few people, and they actually make them produce. Now, this is a weird simulation wink, right? So the whole mandate of the entire mandate of the deputization of the bank system to root out and find money laundering and chase around money for the sake of information and all of these things, everything that has existed since 1964 in the wake of the Kennedy assassination, and the deputization of the bank system in order to do this work, right? Everything that's existed since then, the entire structure since then is keyed on creating something called a suspicious activity report, right? Now, the acronym for that becomes SARS. SARS. Really, SARS, right? So imagine SARS, which is another name for COVID, right? SARS-CoV. SARS predated COVID in all of this pandemic stuff, right? So SARS, literally the same acronym, SARS, is the actual prism through which we can view clearly how bad Mockingbird is, how bad the suspicious activity report FinCEN mandate is actually a failure and didn't do anything that it decided, or anything that it was created for, or anything that the lies that go behind its justifying its existence even are able to explain, right? So those things together are going to be, and I think are, the greatest insight into just how deep Mockingbird really is, right? And you can see it. So the SARS reports for Hunter Biden, right? This is the Morgan Stanley story. The SARS report for Hunter Biden, they created a dossier, like a PDF, multiple pages with flowcharts and graphs and explanations on how Hunter Biden operated his influence peddling scheme in 2015. Morgan Stanley saw the suspicious activity reports, and they didn't just do the normal filing to FinCEN. They actually created a document, an argument, a case. They put together a case. And of course, it was ignored. Here's what we know. Hunter Biden's business activities were so unusual that Morgan Stanley created a presentation outlining them in 2015, filed suspicious activity reports, and independently reported the information directly to the SEC. Totally just a conspiracy theory. Now, I've got the file here, May 8th, 2015. What was I doing at that day? I was working on this exact story, it was the last days of my time in the Senate. It was barely even there anymore. The report was written, and we were really just trying to push back against behind-the-scenes lobbying from FinTrack and all these other people, because we were not going in the way they wanted. Right? We were going to freedom. We were saying no regulation of Bitcoin. Get out of here with all of that stuff. It's not the same as dollars. Leave us alone. And we were successful. And so at the time, I knew FinTrack and FinCEN were scams and FATF and all that. But I didn't really understand how bad it was. If I'd have known this was going on simultaneous, that there was a suspicious activity report on the vice president at the time, the sitting vice president's son, and no one was dealing with it, this would have been the actual smoking gun I needed in order to push, at the time, anyone. There was no Trump derangement syndrome yet, right? I had actual mega liberals on my side that hadn't been brainwashed yet, that would have had no problem going forward, not on the Hunter Biden thing, but just on making sure we destroyed FinTrack. I was close to getting liberals to destroy FinTrack in Canada. That's the FinCEN version in Canada. It didn't work out. But here's what we know, right? So potentially suspicious structure and transactions. May 18th, 2015, right? So they say no clear illegal activities being accused, but authors of this presentation determined activity was suspicious enough to warrant escalation of review by appropriate internal compliance representatives. In the winter of 2014, Morgan Stanley's municipal credit trading desk was approached by a Morgan Stanley financial advisor representing a holder of a recently issued private placement taxable municipal bond. Blah, 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 right? We got Bermuda accounts here. We got all kinds of stuff. The transaction structure shows the Rosemont Seneca, right? It shows Devon Archer is in it in his personal account. It shows how the money would go through these different financial groups, WAC, Pomni Community Corporation, just like complete and obvious money laundering operation here, right? And they talk about Robert Hunter Biden, a little bit about his hedge fund troubles that he'd been caught up in a little before. Devon Archer's name is all over this thing, right? Sits on the board of Ukrainian gas firm Burisma Holdings. They sort of underline all of this stuff, right? And there you go, right? There's an article today that says early warning: Feds alerted to whistleblower concern over Hunter Biden business deals in 2015, right? Didn't get anything out of it, right? Just ignored and not important to the story, right? So the idea here is that even these institutions in banking and media and along with whatever practice of judiciary we had that would help balance federalism in America, both of those things are obsolete. They don't work at all, right? You can go further, though. You can go further. It's not just the banks, right? It's not just the banks. We know the media is nuts, right? We know the FBI is nuts, but it gets even crazier, right? Now, I don't know how much of this is true, but you even got Elon Musk asking the same question as me. Is it that much? Because you've got several people yesterday, Kanakoa Substack, for example, writing about just how many and how much FBI involvement has occurred in domestic terrorism in the United States. The number is actually crazy, right? It's something like 80-something% of terrorist activities had direct FBI involvement. And here's kind of what it looks like right now. Now, I don't know if this is true. The numbers, even Elon Musk is saying that much, right? That much. Now, I don't know. I don't know. The numbers seem high, but they might not be. We have no context. We have no ability to navigate the extent of this. We just know that it's bad. Here's what they say. The FBI created fake militia groups. They used a network of 12 informants, one of which is a convicted pedophile, and 2 undercover agents to entrap and frame a group of innocent men. 2 were acquitted. 2 innocent men are in Supermax right now appealing. FBI provided alcohol and marijuana. They tried pushing $5,000 credit cards on the guys. The FBI wanted to use the multi-state domestic terror plot. They had targets in 15 states, right? The FBI tried to get Frank Butler, a disabled Vietnam veteran, to kidnap and kill the Virginia governor at the time. FBI agent Chambers told his informant, Dan, mission is to kill the governor specifically. The FBI sent Frank Butler a bomb recipe and told him to double the ingredients. And they arrest these guys, right? Now there's other ones, right? There's the one here. You've got let me get the one that I had from well, anyway, I had other ones. So Elon basically saying, don't know if these numbers are true because they're super high, but if they are, we're in big trouble here, right? We're in big trouble. So we can see it's the media, we can see the banks, we can see the political operatives diluting the effectiveness of the separation of powers in a federal republic, right? We can see these things, and these are the things that we're supposed to use to make the whole system work. It goes further than the banks, right? It goes further than the banks. This Liberty Safe story that everyone's talking about, right? This is another one of these trusted third-party situations, right? or trusted turd parties, as we say. If any of you have seen this guy, and this, you even get like what some people say is a Mockingbird asset, Sean Hannity on Fox, right? Sean Hannity on Fox. Some people say he wears a CIA pin, right? Some people say Sean Hannity is part of the problem, right? I'm there, right? I'm there. And Sean Hannity, as much as he likes Trump and all this stuff, right? Is he a credible player in this? Now, he's a kind of cartoon character in a sense, right? You don't have to take him seriously. He only talks to one portion of the overall audience. But he's been pushing this Liberty Safe thing for a while, right? He was doing ads. One of his ads even says, "Oh, I lost my key once, and they were there in no time with a backup." It's a safe, right? So it turns out, and we've just found this out because they've gone into and assisted the feds breaking into someone's safe and taking everything out, because it turns out they have a master key to every safe. The biggest safe company in America, physical safe company, has a backdoor key to every safe. That's what we just found out 2 days ago. Liberty Safe is owned by a New York City-based super woke private equity firm. Before that, they were owned by a publicly traded company that was equally terrible. Good idea to never buy a safe from a company with that structure. They won't be on your side when it matters. Now, it's not the idea of a safe company. It's that they have the structure, that they are integrated into the system to the extent that they are. So the problem is not the idea of a safe or that safes are failures or anything like that. The problem is that the structure behind them, just as Jordan, and this is from Jordan Schachtel, who was a speaker at Bitcoin 2023 in Miami, who we love. He's a great guy, total Bitcoiner. What he's identifying here is that the trusted third parties, in this case, the actual institutions, right? The New York Stock Exchange in this case. Now, it's not the stock exchange themselves involved. It's the structure, it's the incentives, it's what it leads people to do, what it leads people to think is okay to do, right? And that's the situation we find ourselves in. So it's those guys, it's FBI, backdoors, banks not working. You can go further now. We see this, and I got to give him credit. I've been on Squawk Box many times, right? I've been on Squawk Box many times with Andrew Ross Sorkin, right? And honestly, my impression of Andrew Ross Sorkin is he's trying his best, right? He really is. I from what I gather, I've spent enough sort of private time with the guy. I've made fun of him a few times because sometimes he looks a little clueless up there. But yesterday, and this has to be said, he's Jewish, right? Because he had Jonathan Greenblatt, the ADL head, on the show yesterday. And now look at how crazy things are getting. So we had him on the show to talk about Elon Musk and the $20 billion or $4 billion suit he's bringing against the ADL. And so Greenblatt was there, and Andrew Ross Sorkin tried to ask him a pretty gentle question, right? Do you guys, how do you respond to the idea that you shake down participants, right? That you shake them down. And by shake them down, what Andrew Ross Sorkin was saying is like, look, I hate anti-Semitism, but is it a thing that you can call someone an anti-Semite until they pay you money and then you take it away, right? That he was just reiterating the criticism that the ADL sometimes gets from certain groups, right? He wasn't even going any further than that, right? And right away, Jonathan Greenblatt accused Andrew Ross Sorkin of being a anti-Semite who's dealing in Jewish tropes or something like that, right? Now, I'm one of the biggest lovers of Jewish people, Jewish history you're going to find. Like, really, I love the Jewish system, Jewish family structure, Jewish community. I lived right on the border in New York City of the large Hasidic Jewish population. Now, I don't think women would be having as good of a time as I had running through that community, doing my groceries, hanging out with people. But everybody treated me there amazingly. I mean, great, right? And my whole life, Montreal, very Jewish city. I've had a lot of interaction. I've been to Israel. I've celebrated many of the high holidays with my Jewish friends. I know all the greetings and all that kind of stuff, right? Very, very, very pro-Jewish. And this case of Greenblatt coming out and saying to Andrew Ross Sorkin, basically, if you ask any questions about what it is we're doing, then you're also an anti-Semite and you're peddling in tropes. So this is what he came out and said, right? I love how the ADL, this is Ashley St. Clair, how the ADL overlord Jonathan Greenblatt says the ADL is just a little non-profit in New York with no power, right? Because that was his defense. You're using these tropes. We're not out for money, right? As if it didn't lead the pressure campaign that squeezed $60 billion from Meta's market cap for not complying with their demands. ADL has been operating a mafia-style ideological compliance for decades. And did you know, you want to hear something hilarious? I saw this on Mark Dice yesterday, that there was a similar group, the Italian American Community Advocacy or something like that, but that was set up by actual mafia people in order to push back on any criticisms that Italians are a mafioso. It's the same formula, right? Literally, right? I didn't know that, right? And here he is again, right? The powerless ADL, this is Ashley St. Clair, threatened to smear the entire country of Iceland as Nazis if they didn't adhere to their demands. And in this case, it was Iceland saying they're going to ban circumcision, right? That was enough for them to say, oh, this is the worst thing ever, right? Elon responded to that and saying exactly, the ADL is extremely powerful in the West, as demonstrated by our massive drop in US advertising, while Asia advertising hasn't changed, right? So he shows the resonance. And I think he's going to use that in his own legal case if he goes through with it, right? Mario Nawfal breaks down just how big the ADF really is, right? And you can see in the numbers, these are not the small-time group that they say they are, right? ADL is an influential organization, 100 years of history, according to the 2021 tax filings. Their revenue was $100 million, and they've got $238 million on the balance sheet, right? We're a small little thing. So even Andrew Ross Sorkin can ask questions, right? Some people bringing that up, right? Because the answer is yes regarding seeking donations. Hence Jonathan Greenblatt's refusal to answer the question, right? And the question here was Andrew Ross Sorkin asking Greenblatt if he was seeking to have a role at X or if he was shaking Elon Musk down for donations like he did to Adidas and the Brooklyn Nets, and responds by saying that's an anti-Semitic trope. So that's the thing he was talking about. Because the answer is yes, Elon Musk says. Jonathan Greenblatt instead went on the attack, implying that Sorkin, despite being Jewish, is somehow an anti-Semite just for asking a basic conflict of interest question. And Legendary Energy, who we also love, right? I don't know if you guys ever follow Legendary Energy, but he's, I think, one of the most consistent people out there. You got to give him credit. He pushed back against Trump in the early days with Cernovich, is very anti-Trump, even though he was a big part of 2016 Trump. And here he says, I hope people are catching on to what's going on here. It's getting so ridiculous. Now, truthfully, the ADL, I think, now I could be wrong, but like the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, it looks like they really are the fulcrum for a lot of this stuff, because you need these independent groups to be able to come out and criticize if you're going to cite them and go into the information laundering system, right? If you want to information launder, just like if you want to money launder, you need people like Morgan Stanley, you need people like JP Morgan. You can't just go and money launder. You need SBF, right? You need these things. I even noticed that someone asked me that question yesterday in the notes about trying to figure out what's going on with the corruption with Hunter and all that, and in particular Ukraine, why the administration was so pro Ukraine. Now, what I'll and this person says, I know about the biolabs, I know about the money and the exchanges, but what I'll say to that is, perhaps, now I'm not sure, but perhaps the answer is that I think the system got addicted to having a black hole for money. And they used Afghanistan. If you listen to Glenn Greenwald, right, he'd been saying that forever. They had this black hole for money. And then Syria became that with ISIS, right? Where did ISIS go? Was Trump really so effective in destroying ISIS? Was that really the case? Or was it a button you could turn on and off? I don't know. But the point is, now, I don't know if this is true, but there is a way to fill in the blanks. Now, it's hallucination. I don't have the proof, right? This is a pure hallucination. I have imagined it to finish the story and make it make sense. I do not know if it's true, but it feels like it fits. So the way I see it is you had all of this money going into the dark pits of Afghanistan and Syria, and the system got addicted to that. It needed that. And when Trump took that away, that's what made him the enemy, because they couldn't predict he would keep this stuff going on. Remember how much they loved him when he bombed Syria. They loved him. They loved him. This is the day president became the president, they said, right? That Trump became the president. That they were glowing with it, right? You had Sean Hannity, everybody, kumbaya. It was that day that Trump bombed Syria, right? Some people said he was getting tricked into it and he never did it again, because I think he did not appreciate maybe the information he was given. I don't know. But my understanding is, and the way I picture Ukraine, is that they just started that whole situation to get that ball rolling again. Now, is it true? Does that even answer that fella's question who said, well, I know they had the exchanges? I think it ends up explaining a lot, right? But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. But that's what I see, right? That's why the whole Ukraine thing is so politicized, is so full of brainwashing. And I don't think the answer has to be any more complicated than just follow the money. There's a lot of money going there. Why is all that money going there? Is it really for bombs and all that stuff? It looks the same as Afghanistan. It looks the same as Syria. So what I see is a system that requires this as fuel. It requires the money laundering. It requires the financial incentives to be there. Otherwise, it breaks. So that's just another part of what is broken, right? But the ability to money launder, right? And like we've seen, JP Morgan was involved, Morgan Stanley involved in this stuff. You need these, trusted third parties to do it. And ADL and the Southern Poverty Law Center have been that for information. The ADL is the JP Morgan of information laundering, right? The way JP Morgan can help money launder in Ukraine is the way the ADL can help information launder. The system of information laundering and money laundering are almost the same. They're almost identical. You put out the fake thing, you cite it, and then you just go on that bubble and ride it right through, right? So that they're the same system. Now the ability for these folks to continue to operate is going to get limited, I think. Here's what the ADL is even saying, right? Antifa flags are hate symbols, right? White lives matter, hate symbol. It's okay to be white, hate symbol. This one, they're the ones who did this one, that like the okay. Remember that one that got turned into a white supremacist symbol? Could you imagine? They tried to turn, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm great. I'm doing great. Now I even think twice about doing it in public because people are going to think there's a problem, right? How are you? I'm great, right? That's become randomly this hate symbol, right? The anti-Antifa flag is hilarious, though. That's a good one, right? So here's what Christopher Rufo says, right? The SPLC and ADL do not command the kind of power they once did. The SPLC tried to destroy Moms of Liberty by labeling it an extremist group, and the ADL tried to buckle Elon Musk using its typical pressure tactics. Both campaigns failed. Time to counterattack. Now, here's the counterattack, and this is why I think it's so important, right? The capacity for this to continue relies on the idea, right? This idea that basically everything in America is broken, right? All of these trusted third parties are finished. They don't work. We see the banking, we see the media, we see federal institutions in the separation of powers and the judiciary, all of these things producing absolutely absurd outcomes. But we're led to believe that the one system in America that still works perfectly in all 50 states was our election system. That was fine. Right? Not everything's broken except the election system. And so yesterday you had Vivek on the Mehdi Hassan show. And of course, Mehdi Hassan typically, smug face, telling Vivek he's an idiot. Oh my God, you're not ready for prime time. But again, here's what Vivek said, and it couldn't be better. It couldn't be better. And here he is talking about the actual most important system in America that is broken, which is the election system. And he says the following: the media loves self-loathing Republicans who flog themselves for January 6th. I won't, and I've pledged to pardon all peaceful protesters that day. The truth is, we missed an opportunity for unity when concerns around election integrity and peaceful transition of power came to a head. But we can still get this right and move our nation forward. 1, make Election Day a voting holiday. 2, single day voting. 3, paper ballots. 4, government issued voter ID matched to the voter file. I will lead us to get there and pledge to lead all Americans forward beyond concerns about election integrity after that. This is achievable. So first of all, is it achievable? I think so, right? I think so. I think of all the people that can do it, Vivek is top of the list. And more importantly, by putting that kind of focus onto it, by putting that kind of attention on it, right? While all these other systems break down, by putting that kind of attention on it, I think you're going to get the right answer. And once you get that right answer, once you get the political system responding, you might get the diagnosis of what really is ailing the patient, right? And this brings me to a new interview Tucker is going to be giving next time. So he did the Larry Sinclair interview. Now I get it, gay and sucking dicks and all that. Look, it proves what we know already, right? The American media, the American narrative weavers are absolutely out of control, and our idea of the country is not even close to what we think it is, right? But most of us Bitcoiners are already there, right? So does the whole Sinclair thing really matter to us? A little bit, right? Cernovich says, shit libs said Kavanaugh ran a street gang to rape high school kids in the New Yorker, source to Michael Avenatti, who's in jail. But conservatives be like, whoa, I don't want no part of the Obama allegations. How pathetic many of you are. You want little head pats from the left. It's not exactly that. It's more distraction, right? It's more distraction. But if it does actually help open people's eyes to what's going on, fine, right? It's a big thing, right? So it could do that. And it could be interesting in that way, but that's not what I think is interesting. Tucker's next interview is going to be with Javier Milei, the Argentinian candidate for president, and it's going to be all about Bitcoin. Finally. So we're getting a Bitcoin interview in all of this context, watching how terrible America is, watching what it's become. And unbelievably, you get the most what should be the wealthiest South American country that has been absolutely destroyed by its combination of money and state, right? Having a leader who's now willing to pull money and state apart. And by separating money and state, you're going to have the actual proper conversation that Americans need to have, that we've arrived at with all of this destruction, all of this failure, all of this distrust that has been cultivated in every way of American life that we would have thought, healthy and stable just 10 years ago. So we're at that point, and I think here's a Jason Whitlock quote from today. He says, Alex Jones, Glenn Greenwald, Tucker Carlson, Matt Taibbi, Matt Walsh, Joe Rogan, Glenn Beck, Macon Kelly, Candace Owens, Dan Bongino. There's a growing list of disruptors with more credibility, juice, and journalistic instinct than the corporate-approved talking heads. I'm forgetting a bunch of people, but the real resistance is actually getting stronger and stronger. I'm trying to remain more optimistic. Watching Bill Maher's latest appearance on Joe Rogan underscores the direction of the wind. Even Maher recognizes he can't speak truth on a corporate platform, right? And that's where we're headed. We're about to have one of the most amazing times in the history of America. Everything's in front of us to change the country's course, to change our personal course, and to separate money and state. Now, again, I don't think these institutions are going to last forever, but and I'm not looking to democracy to help fix our problems, right? But that it could be implemented in this conversion time to at least beat back the enemy while we go through the hard work. It's not going to be easy to separate money and state, right? But it'll be better than what it is. All right, so let's see what some of the people say here. Thomas Sowell, everything is trade-offs. Indeed, Steve, everything is trade-offs. 1 BTC equals 1 BTC extra fee of monetary math, opposite of entropy. We love it. This is a physics exist here, right? Project Mockingbird is the corrupt fruits of Project Paperclip. Yeah, I'm a Project Paperclip guy myself, or Operation Paperclip. Yeah, could be. False flags are everywhere. Yeah. The acronym agencies have worked with actual serial killers in the past. If we all really knew the extent of the bad stuff, I don't think a rebuild would be a debate. No, I mean, Charles Manson. I mean, what happened there, right? Yeah, if someone with great teeth comes out and says Obama's gay, I believe it, says everyone. It's true. It's true. I got to see a bit more proof of this. I don't know. That's look, if it's true, if there's physical evidence it's true, it's an important story. I think, because it just, not about Obama. He can suck as many dicks as he feels like. I don't care, right? Honestly, I don't care. It's the running of narrative on top of that. Now, I get why someone wants to be private and doesn't want to share that. I respect that, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. We're not talking about his private stuff, right? What we need is someone, having a conversation about the extent of the lying and the myth making is relevant, right? It is relevant. But Bitcoin Graffiti says, anybody can claim such a thing. Yeah, that's why I don't look. I'm not jumping into the coverage of the Obama thing. Like, I don't care. Right? I care only in the way that if it sounded credible, right? It sounded credible. Like, I don't suspect he's lying, right? But we can have false memories and lots of crazy things happen. So there you go. There you go. All right, team. That's all I got for today. Let me know if I missed anything. Yeah, let me know if I missed anything. I think that SARS thing is funny, though. The Morgan Stanley, that we might actually be able to prove that the two best ways of understanding the corruption of American turd parties is by looking at SARS, both suspicious activity reports and COVID. Simulation. We love you. We love you for making it easy. That's fun. All right, team. That's all I got for today. I shall see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow will be Friday. Looking forward to it. I'll be on FedWatch, on Bitcoin Magazine, on Rumble at 12:30 Eastern Time with my man Ansel Linder. So I'll see you all then. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the great show, compliment, and the heart. We love it, Robert. All right, everyone.